Hello, welcome to the audition of Open All Hours, the QPR podcast, and we're in hopefully a better place than we were last week, although results actually haven't changed, but more what's going on behind the scenes. I'm joined tonight with someone who I bent the ear off terribly on Saturday, and I feel bad about it during the first half and second half, is Simon Hall. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Paul. How you doing? All right?
I'm all right. We'll pretend we haven't done this before where I didn't press record, okay?
Don't worry. Don't worry, that's fine.
Your secret is safe for me and mine's safe for you. Charlie Wise joins us after a wee break. Hey, all right, Charlie, you all right?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
But last time I seen you, you were walking away with your dad with a face like thunder, walking down South Africa Road after the Sunderland game, not stopping for autographs or anything.
This is correct, apart from the autographs part.
And we're joined by someone that may be familiar, a fan's favourite, a winger of his time of absolute perfection crosses we could do with now. Lee Cook, hello.
Good evening. Good to be here. Well? To see you. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Lee was expecting me to ring him.
It's been a minute. That's what everyone says these days, isn't it? It's been a minute.
Is that what he's saying?
Well, I think that's what the cool kids say. It's been a minute now, and it was something like that, rather than it's been a while. I think it's been a minute.
Unsurprising that Finney doesn't know that.
Yeah, to be fair, even when I was a kid, I was never cool. I was always the one that got picked on for being just really odd and just.
that really surprises me.
Oh mate, I was. Oh god, if it wasn't for me, someone else's life would have been hell. That's all I can say back in Belfast. Quincy, dyslexic and celiac. There you go, bingo cards played, and I was a joy to the bullies, I tell you, and it was shite at football. Now, Lee, before we bring you in and have a wee talk about the new appointment and stuff, which obviously you know. Yeah. The fellow well. Simon, we'll cover Saturday briefly. First half good, second half mistakes. Great goal by Chur. We got battered again, and we collected another 3. Is that fair enough?
It is fair enough. I mean, I did say that for 2 minutes before we realised you hadn't put the record on. But yeah, just my sort of view on it was. Yeah, the first half I thought was much better. Organisation-wise, it was significantly better. You could see the gaps, which were all over at Sunderland, weren't about in that first half. And yeah, but as I said before, it was same old story. Teams just don't really have to make an effort to score against us. And teams that know all they've got to do is just hang in, make sure they don't concede. Middlesbrough did that. They were no way near the first half. I think we all said that there was no way they could be that bad second half, and true to form, they weren't. And then it took them 15 minutes where they built up pressure, and the goal was coming. And again, it was a poor bit of marking in the middle, but you could tell from the build-up that something was going to happen. The second goal, I think, was the one which killed it with the penalty. I know my wife, who was with me, thought that Boonham had got the ball, and other people had said that, but you don't go diving in your own box like that. You're asking for a referee to make a decision. In my opinion, I think it was yours as well, Paul, was it looked an absolute nailed-on penalty from where we were first time, and it's another one of those things with Boonham of he's 19 years old, but should he really be learning on the job with us like that? Chair, great finish, and yeah, for all of about a minute, we had a bit of hope, but then it was another shambolic third goal, and ultimately it's same old. We don't really create enough chances, and it's very, very easy to score against us. And as we know, it's a potent mix. And I think with Critchley at the end, I think we all said the long goodbye. I think he knew he was going at that time as well. And I think, particularly after the Sunderland game, it's been quite inevitable.
Yeah, I saw the penalty again with the benefit of TV. Wasn't a pen. Looked at it from where we were, but I don't think it was a pen. But you're right about the way he went in. The long goodbye from Critchley was pretty obvious, wasn't it? I mean, he was like, I'm still trying to recover what the idea of playing field as a winger. Then he goes in the middle, then goes back out the wing when people just run him past him. And just, yeah, I mean, I felt sorry for Critchley in some ways because he inherited 2-player squads. We've said this, but after betting Saturday, I think that was after that result. It was probably the right was on the wall. Maybe it was the right thing to do because the way the results went last night against us, it's going to be a hard one even now to get out of. So it had to be done, I guess. Charlie, did you see the game Saturday at all, or did you see the highlights? Or
sadly, I did. I think it sort of summed it all up when we thought, do you know what, we did all right there, and we've lost the game 3-1 in comparison to how we've been playing lately. I think it was a very strange one in terms of Borough. The place looked so flat in terms of Borough, and as Simon rightly mentioned, they didn't really have to do anything, and they still blew us over come the end of the game. It was, for me, it was almost Sunderland was so poor, and nothing was changed from Sunderland, and we expected a different result, which still bemuses me to this point. And I think that's kind of been a little bit embodied by some of the decisions Critchley made throughout, potentially a lack of changes, a lack of rotation. And I mean, albeit sometimes it is difficult when you come into the middle of the season and in a team that's not doing well. It's not like you've got a pre-season to try out new formations, etc. But yeah, some strange things were being sampled with Sandfield. Even I think at Sunderland as well, he's playing right midfield. The writing was on the wall. It was, a couple of halves in the second half, and Middlesbrough blew us out of the water. Horrendous. I think for that third goal, it was shocking. Lazy defending, no tracking back, no marking. We just looked to stay. And yeah, that was the end. And I think in hindsight, in reality, that was the right decision for Critchley to part the club after Borough. I mean, you could have argued before that, but yeah, come Borough on Saturday, that was it.
You might be cynical and say maybe they're just letting Gareth get another game under his belt to say goodbye to Wickham with the players and that. So that would be the cynical side of me. Lee, did you catch any of the game Saturday, or were you busy scouting for players?
No,
or?
I was busy. I didn't. Unfortunately, mate, I've not seen any game this season. I've not been able to get down at any point. Even when we were flying, I didn't get the opportunity to come down and see what was going on. But yeah, I felt a bit sorry for Neil in some sort of sense, because he's come in with high expectations of a team that really was in a false position. So from that point of view, he's starting on the back foot anyway. But when you look at his record and what actually happened during his short time, it was pretty bad, and you just can't afford to keep giving him another game when there's so much at stake. And
that's interesting.
Unfortunately for him, he come in thinking that maybe he could do something and maybe push us into the playoffs. But as I said, I feel like we had a purple patch at the start of the season, and I feel like over 40 games, even Bill would have probably finished mid-table with this team. And I feel he was just coming in off the back of someone doing so well in a short period of time. I think it was 15 games. I think he won 9 of them, didn't he, Bill?
Yeah.
And having that, I mean, we had a purple patch the season when the lads first got promoted from League One to the Champion, and I signed. I remember that season we won 7 on the spin, and I think after 20 games we were sitting in second spot. But over a season with some injuries, when your squad depth's not as strong as the others, it fizzles out and the table don't lie come May time. We just felt that Neil didn't really get back in January to bring any, big players in that he might have wanted. And I felt once the window closed, I thought of the writings on the wall for him, really. And I'd say doing it the time they've done it gives them an opportunity to stay up for sure.
You can dodge this question if you want. I don't mind. You're not a player anymore. I know you're still involved in the game, but is there a case sometimes players just don't have a manager? It just doesn't work, and the players just aren't having it at all with certain managers. Because it sometimes looked to be like Critchley never really had the dressing room.
Yes, in a word, but you still have a bit of pride in yourself and going out and doing your job on the day. You want to go out and be the best player on the pitch every game. And if 11 of you are doing that, then you should do all right. I mean, running that extra yard, yes, sometimes you might not do that for one manager and that you would do for another, but 95% of it is you will still want to be the best player on the pitch on that Saturday afternoon when you go out. So it's a yes in that sense of working that extra little bit. You always see when a new manager comes in, everyone's running around like a blue bottle, and it's always a little honeymoon period when a new manager comes in. Neil didn't have that for whatever reason, but hopefully Gaz does, and I can see Gaz rallying this group for sure. There's enough quality in there to get away from the relegation zone. There's far many teams worse than what we are for sure. So having someone like Gaz, his strength is rallying players, getting players on his side, making you want to run through a brick wall for him. And that's probably one of the main points that they went for Gareth.
Yeah, Charlie, what do you think? Can you see why they've gone for Gareth in the same sort of mold as what Lee just said?
I think it's obviously an interesting appointment. I think when you compare the previous managers we've had in terms of the philosophy and the style of football that the board and Lee have wanted to implement across the football club, I think when you look Beale, Critchley, even Warburton before, they've been managers that have prided themselves on possession and free-flowing attacking football. Now, I think one of the biggest reasons as why they potentially have wanted to take this position forward is that the club is obviously wants to become a selling club. It wants to create a platform that young technical players can showcase themselves upon, and the club can sell forward, make a profit, and reinvest in the football club. Now, if we look at the track record and we look at the position we've been in with these managers, we haven't really got anywhere with these managers. We've been quite stagnant in terms of our league position and progression through the league, and we haven't really sold many players, bar Eze. So now you come and look at it and go, right, do we go again and try and get a manager that has a similar philosophy, like they did with Critchley, potentially, a similar background going back to Beale, and that didn't really work. So now I think it comes back to the drawing board, and you look potentially from a different perspective and go, this squad, should we say, is in crisis at the moment. We've been on a serious decline since November time. We haven't won a game in 4 months. And there's a real character problem, there's a real mentality problem, and there's a real lack of confidence within the squad. So you come at it from another angle, and which is why I do think that this appointment makes sense. I think when you look at,
you're definitely right there. That I think there's two ways to look at this appointment. One is the reason that Charlie's just said there, like he's basically hit the nail on the head there, where Gareth will come in and do that something different to what the others have been. He will get them behind him, and I think the other main point, which is probably why they went for Gaz, the fans were turning a little bit on the board, on Les a bit, on Lee a bit. There was a bit of trust issues being lost, and I feel like a big part of this, although footballing reasons, Gareth deserves the job totally. He would have been my choice probably back in the summer. I feel this also is an appointment to sort of get the fans back on side a little bit, get the crowd going again, take the pressure off them a little bit, gives them a bit more breathing space. And obviously, if Gareth does well, which I believe he will, it will then switch back to what it was before, which is generally what everybody wants. We don't want an atmosphere around the club that, the fans are moaning at the board. It's been a long time since we've done that. So in that sense, I think they've gone for Gaz for both reasons, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And yeah, let's just hope that everything works on and off the field, because essentially we don't want to be the club where the fans are moaning about who's in charge in the board and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like this appointment's definitely going to help switch that little mentality a little bit, because from what I've heard and what I've seen, that mentality was switching on the board a little bit.
Can I just come on the back of that? Just really quickly. Completely agree. I think the position the board's in, the negative perception, almost the down talking, and some of the calls for them to be ejected from the club, for a nicer term, in terms of some things been thrown about. If that is one of the biggest reasons as to why and I'm sure it isn't, and I'd like to hope it isn't, in terms of why they picked Gareth, then I'd be severely disappointed, because I know there wasn't many other managers, and we can come on to this later, but I think in terms of Gareth, he brings something very different, which is not a bad thing. I think in this current climate, I think it is what we need, but I'd really hope that the board is not being influenced by the surrounding noise around the club to be making a decision based upon that, because they need to be making, if any clubs run properly, which, there are potentially some question marks coming around at the moment, the club should be making decisions that is right for the football club, and not listening to social media and all this slander about who we want and why we want them out on the board. They shouldn't be making decisions for the football club long term going forward, dishing out a 3.5-year contract to anybody just because it's the right decision for the fans. And I completely agree with your point, Lee. Completely agree. And I think there is some element of it in that. But I would be severely disappointed with the club and the board and whoever's making these decisions if that is why they've done it. But yeah.
If I can just jump in on that as well, I think the reason why some people have come up with that is that historically, I think you look at the Holloway appointments in 2016. I think that was another one where Hasselbank hadn't really worked, and I think there was genuinely a thought, and it was a board appointment of, right, let's get Holloway in, let's try and get some smiles on faces, and that sort of thing. And it's something that we have done. It's something we have done, particularly under the Fernandes board historically. We've tried to go occasionally. We have this sort of cycle where we try and do things, and then we throw in a populist appointment just to try and keep fans on side. So I can understand the reasons why people might think that it is quite a cynical move. But interestingly, I've been talking quite a lot this week to a season ticket holder Wickham fan, and going forward on this, one of the things which might potentially be a concern with Ainsworth is Ainsworth's had total control at Wickham. So basically, if he wants some tablecloths in the canteen or anything like that, if Ainsworth wants it, he will get it. And it's that sort of book. He has that complete and utter control. And I think what's going to be interesting, particularly with Dobson coming in, who's also had quite a major role in getting transfers, scouting, that sort of thing, is what's going to happen in the short term. I think it's going to work really, really well. And I think he'll give us the boost that we need. I think what I'm thinking about a little bit with it, judging from what my Wickham mate is saying, is what's it going to be like medium term with that element of control? How is Gareth going to cope with someone else maybe doing some work with him when he's had all of that control in 11 years? And I don't know, Lee, how, from your experience of working with him, how do you think he'd cope with that?
You mean like director of football?
Listen, he's not done it all on his own at Wickham with the recruitment and stuff there. That's not been a problem. He's, I've dealt with him on a couple of things with players. They was quite in depth at Wickham. They have a decent scouting system there, and they've got a little thing they do for the under-20s where they bring them through, which is where the lad Mehmeti come from that recently moved to Bristol in the window. So that, it's completely different. People got to understand that League One and League Two is a different world to the Championship and the Premier League. There's such a difference in wage structure, player quality, price tag of a player. It's a different world. It is a completely different world. A lot of them clubs look for free transfers, so they're sort of held back on who they can sign. When you come into the Championship, it's more pressure in a way because you've got more money to spend. You can attract a better player, so you're judged more. And people always say that, he's not had a very good budget. Sometimes it's better off like that. There's no expectations, and you just crack on with what you're doing. You work on a shoestring, and then you pull a couple of decent players off that then get sold, and it looks great. When you're then coming into the Championship, it's a completely different kettle of fish. You've got the Premier Lads teams coming down. You've got the quality of players moving into the Prem. You've got different wage budget and wage structure, and it's a lot harder. Gaz will need the help that he's going to receive from the club. There's no denying that. But essentially, Gaz wouldn't have took this job unless he had full say on who's probably going to come in. This would have been a big part of his interview. The assistant going with him has been with him for so long. He straight away he has to come, otherwise it's not going to happen. We've got to remember, Gaz has applied for this job 2-3 times before this. It's not. This has been in his mind for a while, and he's had his eyes set on this for a long time, and he's gone for it before and hasn't quite got over the line. So the timing of it now, it might suit Gaz. The club's down in the bottom, lying in 17th, 18th position. Everyone's got their heads down. Everyone's moaning. He's the perfect man to come in and spice it up. He will get a tune out of these boys, I have no doubt. Next season, after a good summer, that's when, we can properly start thinking, hold on, let's see where we are now. Because if this short period to end of the season now has to be, we got to stay up just on the run that we're on alone. That's all we can think about. There's nothing else. So bringing him in, timing-wise, I think it's the perfect time for him. And he sort of, because the previous manager has such a stinker and had a less than 10% win rate, he sort of got a free hit for a little bit. And you know, next season, once he gets hold of it, works with the club, with Les and etc., puts his own stamp on it. And once he's got his team together, I think you'll see a different side. I've seen Wickham more times this year than QPR, and they've dominated teams. People think, you know, it was a bit direct at times when Akinfenwa was playing, and it was a little bit, but Gaz was playing to the strengths of that team. That's all he was doing. This year, down at Wickham was different. He had different players. He used Mehmeti a lot as a wide player. Everything went through him as sort of a winger number 10. They had the ball on the deck a lot more this season, and they were dominating teams. I mean, I see him. I mean, even against Bolton, that you thought was a tough game for him, dominated him. So Gaz is ready for this step up for sure. He's had 10, 11 years at Wickham. He's a legend at Wickham. What he's done there has been unreal. So this is the time now for him to step up and show what he can do, because everyone will want to play for him. He's one of them guys that you just instantly, you know, he was my roommate for a while. We were very good friends when we played together. We just got on, and he got on with most people. And when he took over as caretaker, he'd be first to admit he was a bit of a whirlwind for him. But one thing he did have was we all run an extra 10 yards for him. Because we all got on with him and loved him, we would run extra for him. And that's essentially what he's going to bring to the team for the short term, which will help us stay up, we hope.
It's interesting because I see the appointment. I understand why they did it. They brought him in to get the fans back, because the place is still toxic. It wasn't good. Les was getting stick. Lee got stick because of the media rounds they did before that. You know, Lee was on this podcast. You had Les on Clive, and you know it didn't go brilliantly for either, really, in some ways. But it's interesting that Gareth brought his own analyst. I mean, if you're going to look for statements, that's an interesting one, because he's going to call his own shots, I think, and that might not be a bad thing, because he's been a manager for 11 years. Does he really need a director of football for certain things? Maybe, but not overall. He knows players, he knows this league, he knows how to get the best out of people, and hopefully he'll be able to just get on with it. Not that I'm saying others won't, but do what he wants to do. It's about, because we need to break this thing that's going on, because it hasn't been fun. It's been dire, and I think he will energize a crowd. I think there was talk of protest, there was talk of this and the other thing. I think Saturday's just going to be about getting behind Gareth and the team and just beating Blackburn and getting one win, and then just trying to sort ourselves out, because we're in a mess. I mean, half of me is delighted that Ainsworth's here, going to give him a chance. And the other half of me still looking at the league table thinking we are not out of this by a long shot. Do you know what I mean? Like, Lee, there's a real worry we could still go down. And they had to get this right. I think they have. I think he will energise. He will make the place electric. It will get buzzing. And I just hope one thing QPR does do, which is sad, is we kill legends. You know, even Les's reputation's gone a little bit hazy recently. And you know, we've got to detach the player from the manager. If you look at Cherry, if you look at Holloway the second time, they got, you know, it didn't go so well. And I just hope that we're able to keep Gareth, you know, even if it doesn't work out, we've got to stop killing legends at QPR. We've got to keep, do you know what I mean, Simon? It's a hard one to explain, but I just hope we don't kill him. Does that make sense?
And I think if I can make a point on that, and again, I asked my mate Chris, the Wickham fan, that obviously one of the other concerns was Ainsworth at Wickham. It took him about 6-7 years. Don't underestimate the job he's done. He's done an amazing job. But in his second year at Wickham, they very, very nearly went out of the league. And I think my other concern would be, and this isn't about Ainsworth, it's about what we as a fan base would potentially do if the worst came to the worst and we were in that sort of position, is that Ainsworth started relatively slowly at Wickham, but then showed significant improvement. What would we as a board, and also what would we as fans be like? I think obviously we as fans would give him a lot more slack, but you know, with people on social media and so on and so forth doing the same sort of thing, and as we know, I think the board sometimes listens far too much to our social media for making decisions, and I think that's going to be something else which is potentially going to be quite difficult going forward.
Charlie?
Yeah, another thing that is a big element to this, and it kind of comes on to what Simon mentioned in terms of like the long-term project and how much time you give him, etc. I think you look back at previous managers, I don't think potentially built a smidge of a respect given the very small time that he was with us. I can't think of a manager that has installed any form of culture and down to like the values of the squad and what they project across the players and that installment of belief into a set of individuals, what I think there is the potential to with Ainsworth.
Yeah.
I can't really picture going backwards anybody that's really had that level of man management skills. So I think that's one element that I think given time, and I think hopefully given the fact that he keeps us up, I think you've really got to go and let him have a good hit next season and just get off the man. I think, as Simon mentioned, he will get more time given the nature of the individual, given his past experience and given how much respect he's got from the fan base. And I think that's one big thing. I think we've seen this season the fast chopping and changing, it just doesn't work because look at the hangover of Beale leaving, look at the mess that changing to Critchley then again. It doesn't work going through managers in such fast fruition. You look with Warburton, there was plenty of times throughout his tenure that I think it was even the year before last season, there was calls to get Warburton out of the club. And then he went and gave it a good hit. And then he got us back to before that January time, he really kicked on again. I think us as fans can be so fickle in terms of wanting managers in and out the door so quickly.
Absolutely.
And we've had a fine example this season of why that's, and of course Beale wasn't us winning him out, but I think I'm about to say Wickham there. Ainsworth just needs a good hit and you just get behind him and just give him everything because there's nobody else that's going to come into this football club that wants to manage us any more than Gareth does. Look at those other candidates that are on the list. Wilder, Jones, whatever we were getting thrown about. There's no way that they want to come to this club. And if they did want to come to this club, they would always be moaning come the summer, come next January, when it comes to the limit of funds they'd be getting. Gareth's the only person that wouldn't moan about it, can probably accept it, and has experience of working under those tight constraints before. So for me, I can't really see a manager that, given his experience, given the situation, and given how much he wants this job, that deserves a better shot and deserves us fans to really get behind him.
Lee, here's a question for you, for my little brain to come up with. What was Gareth like, the player, to what Gareth is now like as the manager? From what you've...
Well, I mean, don't forget, when he was caretaker, the first day he got the caretaker's job, it was Flavio literally, he walked on the pitch. We was doing the team pattern of play for the game the following day. He walked on the pitch. He sat Dowie on the pitch, and he looked at Gareth and he said, "You're taking charge tomorrow," and then walked off. And Gareth sort of looked. He didn't know if he was taking the piss or what to do. So Dowie sort of stormed off with his staff as he would. Off he went, and Gareth finished the session, and we were like, what the fuck was that about? And then Gareth was just like, I don't know if I'm at what's going on. I'm going to have to go and speak to him because, I was involved in the teams. So am I allowed to pick myself? Like, what am I doing? And it was all a bit of a strange sort of, I think it was 6 odd weeks he had. And, in terms of him as what he was like as a player, what he was like as a manager, I'd say personality-wise a little bit different because as on the field, he was literally, I've never played with anyone like it, actually. He would literally stick his head anywhere. He was sort of calm as a manager. He was trying to help the lads as much as he can in a sort of softly, never see him get angry at all. It was all about helping everybody and trying to get the best out of them, even though it was for a short period. And I think that's probably why he's been so good at Wickham. That sort of 2 little stints as caretaker probably taught him a lot. And I think I heard him say today he's a different person from then, and he would be. He's had 11 years of experience as a manager in League One, which is not easy. That is a horrible league. It's a tough league. There's some big teams in it with a lot bigger budgets. It's not like he's had a tough job there, and he's done really, really well. A couple of promotions. I mean, even nearly kept them up in the Championship, which would have been an absolute miracle with that team. So
you're not wrong.
No, he's pretty. I'd say he's different and the same in the sense of he's still Mr. Rock and Roll. He still wears the boots on the cowboy boots on the side with his leather jacket. The personality of him's the same. It's just he obviously a bit more toned down because he's obviously getting on a bit now, isn't he?
Well, he's still got hurler, which is more than me. That's an interesting. I can't imagine that. So Flappy just said that, "Go out, Derby, out you go, Gareth, you're in charge," and that was it.
It was bizarre. It was bizarre. I mean, that Danny Prejo didn't get picked, and you could tell that he didn't have a bib on. So Flav knew that the bibs were not starting. He told him that he wanted him to play him, and Dowie said no, he's not playing. And he sacked him on the spot. He walked out. He walked down from the canteen on the top and said, "Go and clear your desk. You're out." And it was the way he just said to Gareth, "Gareth, you're in charge for tomorrow," and walked off. So Jesus. I think from that moment, and then I think Gareth enjoyed that 6 weeks. Although it was a whirlwind, he loved being in charge of the lads, and I think that gave him the hunger and the ambition to be a manager, because you know we had Man United in the League Cup away at Old Trafford. You know, we had some the following day was live on Sky away at Reading, and Gareth was on the sideline, and it was, you know, we battled out a 0-0 draw. They were the better team on the night, but we worked so hard defensively because we wanted to work for Gaz, and you know that's his personality. That's what he does. And I think his man management's probably, I'd say, his biggest strength of him as being a manager, the way he looks after his players, the way he cares about his players. You know, you've got a lot of managers out there that there's some bad ones. There is some shockers, and I mean shockers. So it's no surprise to me that Gareth's done the job he's done at Wickham at all. And now we've got him. And look, who knows where he can take us, but all I know is he's going to give it 100. So I can see the atmosphere down there being completely different this Saturday to what it's been over the last few months. And yeah, the fans at Loftus Road, they do give you a boost, and that's what they will probably need Saturday, because Blackburn are a very good team. So it's a tough game for him to start off. But yeah, going back to the original question, I'd say he's a little bit different, but just toned down a little bit from his hectic playing style of smashing through brick walls, basically.
One thing that stays in my head, Simon, you've got a good memory. Mine's shot to pieces. Wasn't there a game we were playing against someone? I don't know if you were playing this one, and someone was about to launch it from the boot, and Gareth went head first, diving header style at the players, at the ball coming out, and just rammed it basically with his head.
Yeah, there was one. Yeah, I do remember it. It was similar to, I think it was the Tyro one in the Premier League, or the Danny Simpson one. We have these players who seem to try and do headers off 6 inches off the floor. But yeah, no, I remember Ainsworth. No, I do remember him doing that. So I think it was in about 2006, 2007, where he did something like that. And then
he broke his leg once. He broke his leg.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, Luton at home it was. And he broke his leg and he played the game with it.
And that's going to be the irony of talking to people like Tyler Roberts, Ethan Laird and things like that, where he's actually taking them to one side. And when we've been hearing Tyler Roberts doesn't feel like playing or something like that, Ainsworth can at least now quite legitimately say, well, I've actually played for QPR with a broken leg. So what are you going to be doing? I think there's that. I think having that as those sorts of examples is going to help, and I think it is going to be interesting with the people. And I think some people have down tools with Critchley. I'm going to be fascinated on Saturday to see how many of the people who, I'll be honest, I think have phoned it in are going to be all ready for Saturday.
Good point, Charlie.
I just want to ask you, Lee, you mentioned it briefly earlier in terms of, I think there's this whole debacle at the moment in terms of Ainsworth only plays direct football. He's going to struggle when it comes to playing at QPR. QPR want to play a certain way. How do you respond to that as a man that you know him very well, and you I'm sure you've spoken to him over? How would you respond to
that? I said it before. I think you play to what works with the talent and players you've got in your team, and that team that he had at Wickham for a few years, not every year, was a team that suited more of a direct sort of option. he changed that this season at Wickham. You know, Bayo left or he retired. He signed Sam Vokes, who again, similar type, target man, but a bit more mobile, can get in and around the box, goal scorer. But he was more of a going through the more talented boys and creating and dominating possession and winning games. And that's what he done this year with him. So, you know, people will say that, you know, but clubs have probably gone to watch Wickham in the past and gone, man, a bit too direct for what we want or what our fans expect. But essentially, Gareth was just working with what he had in the dressing room. So, you know, don't judge him on that when he's got a team that's got better players in it, and then see what he does. You know, he had not the best budget at Wickham, so it weren't like he could go and sign an unbelievable number 10 like Abir Eze, or he had that luxury of saying, oh, I've got Ilias Chair or Willock. You know, he's had to do it in League One. So sometimes in League One, and League Two's even worse, you go more direct. It just comes with territory. The lesser talent you have, the more direct you got to go, because that's what they can do. So, you know, don't judge him on that yet. You got to give him the chance to prove that that's not his style of play. It just was his style of play with the players that he had. And for anyone that's actually thought that, then watch some of Wickham's game this season, if you can watch them, and see how they was different from say 3-4 years ago with the players that they've got, and how he was trying to install a more attacking possession-based sort of football with better players, because they did have better players this year. I think he signed Gareth McCleary, he's been a championship player his whole life a couple of seasons ago. You know, and Sam Vokes, great centre forward for that league, can also play. So it's judge him later down the line on that one, if you like. And people are quick to make these assumptions, aren't they? Especially when they see one game out of 46 that Wickham are on telly, and I watched that because Gaz is manager. God, did you see them last night? That might have been an awful game for Wickham, and they just pinged it long. So people make these judgments over a little snippet they see of a season of football, and that's why we use that saying of old fans are fickle. But you know, judge him now. Now the fans are going to see him and his team every home game, and the travelling away fans, they'll see it regularly every week about what he wants to do. And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised if they've got that opinion of him of he just launches it, because this season it hasn't been that at all.
No, I agree.
I'll just take something that can launch a freaking corner into the box.
What was that, sorry?
I said I'll just take something that can launch a corner into the box that I'm going to tell you after the flipping corners we've had this season. Sorry, trying to carry on.
Yeah, no, just quickly, and lastly from me, Lee. Also, I think one big thing that I think we know Gareth he's a strong character. I'm sure he's got thick skin. I think one thing that probably, no matter who you are, I think given his environment that he's become accustomed to in probably the last 11 years that he's had with Wickham, I think the expectation and probably that almost that buy-in from the fans of that being underdogs, they all appreciate that. They know Gareth's done well. They've overperformed in so many respects as a club, Wickham. And I think when you pick up the man and you drop him in our current environment, where QPR, I think as a club, you know, you look at our attendances, the money we generate, etc. We're pretty much a League One club. We have a lot of fans with the opinion that we're a Premier League club. The expectations that come with that in comparison to the Wickham fans are almost worlds apart. And as I mentioned, I'm sure he's a strong character and etc. etc. How do you think he will cope with that, and to what extent, and how much of a shock do you think that could be for him, given the two environments that are complete polar opposites?
Yeah, I mean, go back to the start of the conversation. I was basically talking about the difference in the Championship to League One, and one of them points is the expectation, because when you're in the division below the promised land, everyone feels like, oh, if we spend a little bit, we've got a chance of getting in the playoffs, we've got a chance of getting to the Premier League. So there comes that huge, lot more pressure than a promotion charge in League One. And I feel like Gareth was on the path to probably, I think they were guaranteed to be in the playoffs, and he could have stayed there and stuck it out and tried to get another promotion under his belt. But he knew as soon as it was QPR, he was going.
What's wrong with him? Why does he want this job now? What a silly man.
Yeah, I mean, if they had come in the summer for him, it'd been a lot easier decision for him. I mean, it must have been a tough one. He must have sat in for a car because they're probably the informed team. Over the last sort of 2 months, they've really picked up and won. I don't know what they're at for. Yeah, I mean, since Christmas, they've been on the form team. So he was on a bit of a winning streak. Everyone was flying. They was dominating games. So for him to jump ship and come, you know, maybe he wouldn't have done it if it was another team in the bottom half of the Championship. He probably would have stuck it out at Wickham, but because it was QPR, he's done it. And he knows the expectation of what QPR is. He's lucky that he knows what the fans want and what they're about because he's played at the club for so many years. So I think he'd deal with the pressure fine. It's that the biggest thing's going to be once he's had a good year in charge, had his own stamp on what players he wants to bring in and got his philosophy into the boys and how he's going to play. In a year's time, if it's not working, then he might start feeling the pressure a bit. But essentially, short term, like I said before, he's starting off on a winner because the previous 3 months has been so bad. So it literally can't get any worse.
Yeah.
So, you know,
things can always get worse at QPR, mate. You should do that.
You can't get worse than 10%. Not after. I mean, how many games was he in charge? 17?
12 he's in charge of.
12. And it was a 10% win rate, which
8.5. Yeah, something like
that. I mean, that's, you know, I feel sorry for him. You know, he's not that bad of a manager. It's just he was fighting a losing battle from day one. But the one thing Gareth will do that what probably Neil wouldn't is the personality sense of getting the lads to run for a brick wall for you, and Gareth will do that. So I think short term it's going to be fine, and he'll handle the pressure of that. He knows what the fans want and how they want to play, but they've got to give him time on that because it takes a while to put your print on a club. That's a fact. Everybody knows that.
And it was interesting watching the inside train. I don't know if anyone watched the inside training video, which was on the website. But what was really interesting was actually, and I know they show certain bits, but for those 6 and a bit minutes, along with the coaching, is that watching Ainsworth go and have those 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3 sort of group chats with people. And I think one of the things as well that you could potentially compare it to on a sporting level is England cricket side in February 2022 was at absolute rock bottom. And ultimately, what it's taken is for Ben Stokes, Brendan McCullum to come in. And one of the main things they've done is actually just change the mentality and just try and release pressure. And if Gareth can actually come in and almost make it feel like you don't feel that sort of pressure, it could have those similar sorts of results to what we're seeing with the England cricket team now. And I think there's a lot, particularly with Dobson and psychology, and I know Critchley wanted a psychologist as well, trying to get to that mental side with those players. I think that also going forward could be quite significant as well.
No, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree with that.
Do you know Richard at all, by the way, Lee?
Sorry?
Do you know Richard at all?
No, not really. No, I've only seen him obviously down Wickham and stuff. I don't know him that much.
Apparently he's a QPR fan as well.
Apparently so.
Which is good.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I heard Gareth say that today. So he's obviously over the moon as well. And you know that's the good thing. They're both QPR men. You know, it just helps. It just helps, and especially when it's been so bad. That it's just that extra boost of the fans know that they really care, and it ain't just that a manager coming in who wants to be successful himself. They actually do care about the club. You know, if you said to Gareth, where would you want to be most successful as a manager, he'd say QPR. Yeah, there's no question in that. You know, even though he supported Blackburn as a kid growing up, he still lives down here. You know, every time, say, he goes shopping in Westfield, the relationship that you get with the QPR fans, and I've never known it really at a club of so many people that are not from London or from QPR that the fans still love once they've left. And even you talk Andy Sinton from up north, you know, all these types, they get like a relationship with the club, and I don't really see that. at many other clubs as much as I do at QPR. So we've got the both of them, the QPR men. Like I said, it helps, but it only helps for the short term. Long term, they need to put their stamp on it, get playing some decent football again, get some better players in, just get the club back fighting for something that, even if we're not spending big money, let's just have a fight and get near and around the playoffs, so we've got something to sort of look forward to or be excited about. You know, even the last sort of, I've not even wanted to look at the results of QPR. It's always the first one I look for, but I've not even wanted to look because I sort of knew what the result was going to be. And, you know, I was even had this discussion with Mike the other day. He said, you know, we could go and beat Middlesbrough at Middlesbrough with Mark Bircham. I spoke to him in the week. And I said, look, I know that's always been the QPR way. You know, when the chips are down, we always will go and beat a Man United 4-1 at Old Trafford. But I said, we won't with the way it is at the moment. There's no chance we're going to go to Middlesbrough and win on Saturday. I just didn't even bother looking because I knew what it was going to be.
I think that was a thing, innit? I mean, under Critchley, we lost so many games. Letting 3 goals was ridiculous. Yeah. I've never done anything like it. Even Paul Hott, I don't think managed that as much as that. Like, and he gave it a go.
Well, he was only in charge for about 3 games, wasn't he?
3 of them were against Sheffield United under Kevin Blackwell.
And to be fair, that was long enough. I mean, this is the thing. I think, you know, it's. I think was he not in charge? We got done 5-0 at Forest away. I'm sure he was.
No, that was Mick.
That was Mick Harford.
That was afterwards, wasn't it?
That was Mick. Yeah, that was. I think Paul was before Mick. Mick took over from Paul.
Yeah, that was it.
It was hard to keep track. I mean, goodness, how you kept
it was a manager a month at that. It was a manager a month at that time until Warnock came in.
Yeah. We actually Mick got a couple of results. I remember beating. I think we beat Doncaster at home because we was in a scrap. Then we knew we was in a scrap. So, you know, the football weren't pretty back then. We were just fighting every week to try and get points, and that's pretty much what it's going to be like now. You know, it's just
you can't blame him for that, can you, Lee?
No, you can't blame him. You know, and you know, Gareth's probably the ideal man to do that. He'll get them fighting for the club. That's the one thing he will do. So, you know, we're getting close to that relegation. But when you look at some of the teams, you think, God damn, mate, we can't go down from this lot, surely. I mean, there's some really bad squads. So, you know, I think he'll rally this group for sure. And hopefully in the summer we can have a decent summer of some ins and outs, and you know, start looking upwards like we were at the start of the season. Although, you know, I'll go back to it. I think it was a purple patch we was having, and even Bill's last 4 or 5 games, it was the signs were there. I think of a depleting team a little bit. I don't think we would have been anywhere near where we are now, but it weren't a team that would have been challenging for the playoffs for sure. You look at the teams now that when Bill left, that was sort of, you know, West Brom were like 20th at the time, weren't they?
Yeah.
And you know, you look at them now, it's over a season, and that's what we've got to remember. And if Gaz comes in and has a little purple patch to help us stay up, fantastic. It's going to be next season that's going to be the one where let's have a good summer in the transfer department and look upwards, onwards and upwards, as they say.
The interesting thing will be, Lee, in all honesty, just get through the next few games, get a couple of wins before then stay up, and then just let everyone take a deep breath, recalculate, rethink. But one thing I do like about Ainsworth is, even with us, he's managed to get the right players on loan at the right time and get the most out of them. His use of the loan market is certainly better than we've had this season, because we haven't really had a good success in the loan market this season. It's been very hit and miss, and you know, that's probably one of the reasons.
What's he been like, led?
He's a good player, but since Bill left, he's gone to pieces.
Yeah, I think he's one of the players who I think you could almost accuse of going off with very, very minor injuries. I think there was one where he went off at half time at Sunderland, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's Middlesbrough away on Saturday." Oh, right. It's that sort of. I think it's that sort of approach. Now that might be unfair, but certainly, I think there's been a few players like that who seem to be, have an aversion to long away games up north.
And also, you got Richards as well, which is a strange one, because I noticed there was a bit of a
that's odd.
I mean, there's a you know, Christie, I don't know how true it was, said something, and he then went on
I've heard.
Twitter, Instagram, replied to it basically. Sorry, Johnny, go. Who was
I
going to
know.
come in there?
I don't know if I froze or you froze.
think Paul's
I've heard there's some character issues there. That's what I'll say.
Well, Robert's definitely down tools, hasn't he? He seems to be on strike basically. He might well be injured. Willett came on and pulled a hamstring within 5 minutes, and if it was even that long. And I just don't think. Listen, I don't think the players were having him, whatever reason, high or what. And I know they're professionals, and no one's got there to lose. I think people like Dunn were losing their absolute shite in the pitch over players not doing the right
I
thing.
think Dunn's actually played quite well the last couple of games. Just
Dunn
quietly.
was pretty excited because I tell you what, Simon noticed this as well. The way he spoke to Kaká when things were going badly, because he was getting Kaká was being overloaded. Everyone's going to criticise him, but he was being massively overloaded. He had two of the best. That forward line of Burr would put the bejesus into anyone, and he was having to face him himself sometimes. And Dunn took him to the side. Dunn's been good. Dickey was better.
Do you think?
Well, he was better. Some of the blocks he was doing, but some of the again, I got the feelings that they were being told to do things, and when they got on the pitch, they ignored everything they'd been told and just played through instinct.
Thing is, the benchmark is so low that anyone could put a 6 out of 10 at the moment, and you go, bloody hell, they had a good game. So
yeah,
and I think that's what brings it. And before we go and think about Saturday and on, you know, going back to the like playing wild thing in the car on the way to the game and going mental. Here's a question: do we still play pig bag if we score, or do we play wild thing? Now there is a question for you, Lee. What do you reckon? Or do you play both?
Play both. There you go.
Excellent. Simon, well,
stick with pig bag.
Yeah, come on, pig bag. What sort of question is that?
Well, I'm just trying to be controversial. The podcast needs to be controversial.
You don't need to try and be controversial. You do that by accident.
Yeah, we've had enough of that lately.
You're not wrong, tell me. But no, I think I think the rock and roll thing's hilarious. I mean, I'd never seen this band play, but everyone said it wasn't actually bad. Did you see him play, Lee? Have you ever seen this band play?
Many a time, mate. We were like his groupies at the time. Me,
That's
I think
mental image.
me, Marcus Bignot, and Martin Rowlands must have been about 5, 6 of them, maybe.
Any good?
He was all right. Yeah, he was all right. Shirt was undone, got the chest out, got the pecs out. He was loving life.
I remember when we went up and he sang "We're the Champions," and we went up in the obviously, and when we did the town hall thing, and he did that, which was nice.
Actually, yeah, bad. He likes. He thinks he's got an unbelievable voice. I wouldn't say it's unbelievable. It's all right. It's all right.
It's better than mine.
His football management's a lot better than his voice. Put it that way.
I like that, Lee. I like that.
But what he does have, he has that appeal of a rock and roll star, doesn't he? The cowboy boots, the leather jacket, the hair. He swings the hair about, and he is quite funny. I put a photo up yesterday on my social media of him at one of the gigs he was at. It was a classic picture. He's like jumping in the air. His hair's sort of flicking back, and he's got a guitar in his hand. And you're thinking the wild thing.
I might need you to send me that for the thumbnail, actually, Lee.
What's that?
I might need you to send me that photo for the thumbnail.
Yeah, it's a good
but you
picture.
know what? At least he's a character. At least he's a maverick. At least he's different. At least he's got personality. At least you know that he will be as honest as he can be as well. Because he always strikes me as being very honest about his own ability, about what's gone right, what's gone wrong. He will not play the media rules so much, but play himself, which is what we need.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the debate of what type of managers succeed at QPR at the moment. Is it managers with a bit of personality? So like Holloway, the last ones, Holloway, Warnock, and so on, obviously had great success. And is there actually something in the fact that you need to have a big personality to be a manager at QPR?
Well, you mentioned it a minute ago about Tyler Roberts not fancying it, not wanting to be out there on the pitch. What Gareth's personality will give to you as a player is you don't want to miss the game Saturday, just in case, because look what he's done in this vibe of getting us all on the same page. I've got to be out there. Whereas before, you weren't bothered. You sort of 9 times out of 10, you knew what was going to happen on Saturday. We were going to get outplayed, outdone, and probably lose the game. So I don't want to be part of that. What Gareth's personality will give is he'll make them not want to miss the game. It will make them want to be out on the pitch. So you might see a difference in Tyler Roberts completely now, because he has got ability, the kid, and he can play. Yeah. And if Gareth gets his personality into him and makes him want to be out on the pitch, you know, he could be a big player for us till the end of the season. For sure.
Then, it's all about staying up, isn't it? Charlie, I'm going to go to your RZ now.
Oh, I was actually thinking of 2, so I don't know which one I'm going to go for. Okay, I just think, do you know what would be nice? I think it'd be really nice at the end of each game to actually be able to sit through the manager's post-match interview. I think for the last 3 months, just sitting there and hearing Critchley, and that's no disrespect. I mean, that is quite disrespectful, but I try to say that in the nicest way possible, if that is at all possible. But
I think everyone's nodding their head, mate. You're fine.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, I do feel a bit sorry for Critchley, but yeah, I don't feel sorry for his post-match interviews. And I think it'd be nice to see someone that's passionate, someone that can speak fluently in front of camera and portray how he feels and let us feel that emotion from his perspective, rather than well, I don't think any of us probably even watched the post-match interviews for probably the last 2 or 3 months. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And your second one?
Do you know what? I think it's slipped out of my head, but the first one will do.
You know what, Charlie? At your age, you shouldn't be forgetting things. Old figures like me.
I was just getting so excited about being able to listen to a post-match interview. I was enjoying the moment.
Excellent. Small things and all that. Simon?
I think one of the nice things I'm having, even despite the hard run, is my son Ted, who's 5 now, is getting more and more enthusiastic about going to games, and he's been going since he was a little baby occasionally. And one of my favourites when I went back and saw him after the Middlesbrough game, and to show that he's really getting the QPR vibe at the moment, was he went, "Daddy, did QPR win?" And I went, "No, Ted, we didn't. We lost 3-1." And his words were after, "I just knew QPR would lose." And that's actually making me feel quite proud at the moment. Yeah, already as a 5-year-old, he gets it. And if he feels like that, it's going to be great character building for him as well. Just having that sort of independence from everyone telling him to support Chelsea, Watford, or whoever. The fact that he's doing that actually is making me quite a proud dad at the moment.
He's proper mid.
Yes, he is.
Lee, have you got an Oz end? I mean, it's what we normally say, something that's on our mind, or a message to the fans about Gareth, or whatever you want to say.
Well, my boy's now 2.5, so I'm hoping by the time he's Simon's boy's age, we're doing a bit better.
Well, it's in Gareth's hands, isn't it?
It's down to Gareth, mate. I'm going to
message him now. 3 to 5.
Louis' future Queen's Park Rangers support in life is all based on what you do, Gareth. No pressure.
I think that's perfectly reasonable, Lee.
I think so. I don't want to be buying him QPR kits and him getting lynched at school because we're getting relegated from the Championship. I can't be having that.
No, you want to be buying him QPR kits because
we want to be going up to the Prem.
Well, yeah,
and you, Lee, are exactly the problem we have in the fan base. Thank you very much. Anybody that's listening,
London Club 95, 1995. Don't forget that.
They were the days. My RZ is quite simple.
Was you born then, Charlie?
No. 2000,
there you go, mate. Yeah, there you go. Top London Club, mate. I remember that.
Hang on, whoa. What year were you born, Charlie?
2000.
Jesus.
Yeah, mate. See, this is why all the expectations are us older boys. That's what it is.
Yeah.
2000. Christ,
we've had the drips and drabs since I've been about.
You're only a year older than my daughter. Jesus. And she was born
Why the day after. What was that?
and we got tanked by Peterborough, Dennis Shittu's debut, and sent off. And that's the day after my daughter was born. Hey ho. So you go back to your message, Simon. It could only get better for her after that. Yes, indeed. And by all that, I just want to clear one thing up. Because
Here we go.
I wouldn't call it an incident. There's something happened Saturday. And some were saying the thing with the Lee Hughes, he was laughing at the fans, and we didn't interject and stop that or defend the fans. Now, for those who listen to the podcast, we asked the question. I took it, and maybe wrongly, and I'll hold my hands up, that he was laughing more at the questions and exasperated by the fact, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and you want more, to which we said yes. So I'm sorry if anyone feels that we didn't ask him the right questions or didn't challenge that, but I did not think for 1 minute he was laughing at the fan base. I would have challenged him. Charlie, you're on that. Did you think that at all? Or
Yeah.
is that fair?
Yeah, until I kind of watched it back, I didn't really realize maybe potentially how sarcastic it was. In the moment, obviously, you kind of, I don't know, thinking of your next question or etc. Yeah, until I kind of watched it back properly, and I didn't really realize the connotations it was given off, which is potentially quite poor. But yeah, in the moment, the way Rob asked it and what I thought he was laughing at, yeah, I think I got the wrong end of the stick at the time. But like I say, as I listened to it back, I think, yeah, these connotations were different. But yeah, make of it what you will, shall I say.
Well, anyway, sorry to everyone who thought we should have done better, and lesson learned, shall we say. And my others are is that one of my mates that goes to football with me, Cindy, is a massive Gareth Ainsworth fan. She's probably got a restraining order, actually, but never mind. And she does this thing at gigs, because me, her and Alan go to games, and she does this thing at gigs where if people talk to a gig, especially Springsteen or something, she'll do you with the car key. So if you get the car key mark on the back of you, she'll like stick a car key in you. So she'll like do you in the ribs with the car key, which is quite painful, or the kidney with the car key. So if you go home and your back's marked in the shape of a car key, you've obviously said something nasty about Gareth, and you should think about your behaviour. So
you never fail to surprise us with these RNs, do you? Like every week. I just think, where on earth these things come from?
You've never been to a flipping gig with her. So, Jesus Christ alive.
Well, you're not really selling it to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you get keyed, you've obviously said something wrong about Gareth. And yes, it doesn't make sense. And now in reflection, I should have just ended it at the Lee Hughes apology. Never mind.
Because they're the same every week, really, but never mind.
Yeah, moving on. Right, the predictions. I'm going to start with Lee, because you've made me feel absolutely really. I mean, the youth of today will say super confident, but I'm neither that sort of young. God, I'm close to the 60 I'm to 30 now. Jesus, I'm not young. I'm old and bald and fat. Anyway, Lee, prediction for Saturday.
I'm going to go 2-1 win.
Excellent. Have you ever stuck your car keys into someone at a gig?
No, but I've took my knickers off and thrown them at someone.
Simon.
I haven't taken my knickers off and thrown them at someone at a gig. Where I actually, funnily enough, I actually agree with Lee. I actually think it's going to be 2-1. I think the lift of mood is going to be so significant. I think this weekend, and the fact that for this first game everyone's going to be behind it, it's actually going to be nice to go and see, regardless. But I actually think, yeah, I'd go with 2-1 as well.
Oh, Charlie.
I'm going to ignore the game of never have they ever and talk about the prediction. I would have probably gone for a 1-1 until I'd have listened to Ainsworth's interview, until he'd sold me a dream. He can take my money, and I'm also going to match you all with a 2-1. I think it just doesn't make sense for us not to win at the weekend. So 2-1.
I'm going to surprise everyone and go for an absolute caning. I think the shackles are off. The lads are going to come out, give it everything. Jimmy Dunn header, a Rob Dickey, Glenn Roder style run, through ball to Ilias, who bangs it in. So I'm going for 4-0. Happy days. The safe stand.
Do you know who we're playing?
Yeah, I know, but it's Blackburn. Listen, mate.
I thought you were going to go 1-0. I thought you were going to say 1-0.
No, go for it. Listen, the shackles are off. The goals are coming.
This is almost your bad prediction of saying we were going to win the league last year.
Oh, he didn't, did he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh. And Charlie, I might mark you out for car key treatment if you're not careful, son. Right?
Yeah, but that's saying bad things about Gareth. It's only bad things about you, Finney.
Yeah, you'd be absolutely fine with that. You fucking probably get more agreement than that, I'll tell you. Now, listen, after travelling 5 hours in the motorway there and back on Saturday, I'd be absolutely delighted to see some goals in the loft end, the safe standing buzzing, the place electric. It's hopefully going to be a day to remember. And welcome home, Gareth, and let's get 3 points and absolutely annihilate Blackburn. And I'll be happy as Larry. And Charlie, as always, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you.
Enjoy the game Saturday, fellas. I hope you have a
thank
cracking
you.
day.
Lee, we haven't closed the podcast yet. You've been a bit premature there, mate.
What?
Hang on a wee second. You've been a wee bit premature. Your goodbyes.
Well, no, the reason I'm saying I've got like 2% left on my phone, so I might cut out.
All right. Do you want to go now then, Lee?
No, it's just if I cut out, you know why.
Okay. So thank you, Joe. This podcast has been an absolute disaster. I love it. We must get a proper host. Simon, thank you so much, as always. And it was a joy to spend Saturday afternoon with you and your wife and us just having a good old moan like the old days.
As I said, Paul, it was that or the mother-in-law.
It was what?
It was that or the mother-in-law, Paul.
You did it again, Charlie. You said it again. You still said both books. No.
If you listen to what you just said.
Oh. Yeah, I feel another Lee Hughes apology coming on again now for something completely different. Never mind. Lee Cook, I would like to thank you for spending your Wednesday evening with us and helping us through. And it
was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
And I hope you're right about how he brings the club together. Thanks, Lee. Good luck, Gav. Come on, Rangers. Let's batter the Blackburn Rovers and get 3 points towards safety. Thank you for listening. And I promise we'll have a proper host one day.
You